Welcome to WISD TV. I am Dr. Scott McClanahan, and I'm the Director of Advanced Academics for Waco ISD. And today I'm joined by Christina Wittich, who is from the Texas Comptroller's Office and is here to talk about the Texas Tuition Promise Fund. Christine, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Texas Tuition Promise Fund? What is this program? What's its goal? And what are the benefits of participating?
Yes, absolutely. The Texas Tuition Promise Fund is a state-administered 529 plan. It's a college savings plan that allows parents to purchase tuition and school-wide required fees at all Texas public universities and colleges. And they can purchase anywhere from a fraction of a class all the way up to 6 years of undergraduate tuition. And by purchasing in advance, what they're doing is they're locking in that tuition rate for all the Texas public universities and colleges.
Okay, so this sounds really similar to something I heard of a number of years ago called the Texas Tomorrow Fund.
Yes.
Is it like that?
So the Texas Tomorrow Fund was a prepaid 529 plan that the state administered, and that closed to new enrollees in 2003. Since 2003, Texas has come out with the Texas Tuition Promise Fund, which is a new plan, but it works the same way for the consumer in that you're locking in that tuition rate for Texas public universities and colleges. We still service the Texas Tomorrow Fund. We still have, I think, 67,000 active accounts and participants in that account. But they no longer accept new enrollees. So the new plan is the Texas Tuition Promise Fund.
Great. I heard you mention that this was a 529 plan. What does that mean?
So a 529 plan is a savings plan usually administered by a higher educational institution or a state. It works a lot like 401k, for example. So it's a savings account that has a designated purpose. 529's designated purpose is higher education expenses. So like a 401k, if you use the money that you've put in the 529 for a purpose other than which it's intended, in this case higher education expenses, and you withdraw the money and you don't use it for that purpose, you will get taxed on the interest earned in the account and also a 10% penalty from the IRS. So it really works to incentivize saving for higher education and really using that money for higher education.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about the logistics. So you said that you can put money away to pay for part of a class or, the whole undergraduate expense. And I think when I was reading online, they called those tuition units. Is that correct?
Yes. So a tuition unit is how we sell the plan. A tuition unit essentially represents a fixed amount of tuition. One unit represents about 1% of 1 year of tuition at that Texas public university and college. The magic number here is 100. So 100 units will get you about a year of college at a Texas public university. And that is the tuition and the school-wide required fees, assuming that you're doing 15 credits in the fall and 15 credit hours in the spring semester, so 30 credit semester hours. So the units, they come in 3 different levels. So you can buy a type 2 unit, a type 1, type 2, or type 3 unit. A type 1 unit represents 1% of 1 year of tuition at the most expensive Texas public university. Right now it's University of Houston Nursing School. A type 2 unit is 1% of 1 year of tuition at the weighted average level school. And a type 3 tuition is 1% of 1 year of tuition at a 2-year public junior college. And it doesn't mean that you're locked into that level of school. It just means that if you're going to buy type 2 units, for example, that's at the weighted average level, you're going to need more of those types of tuition units if your child ends up attending a more expensive school. And vice versa, if they go to a less expensive school and you're using type 1 units, you might need less units to cover that cost of tuition and school-wide required fees.
And can those units be used anywhere? Like, my daughter ended up going to the University of Arkansas. Okay. So are they bound to Texas? Or since it's a savings plan for college, can they be used anywhere?
So the best value of this plan is to really use it for the use that it was intended for, which is a Texas public university or college. They can still use the money privately or out of state. They're just no longer locking in that tuition rate at that point.
Got it. Okay. So what if, I know several of our students will qualify for some financial aid and they might get an academic scholarship or a sports scholarship. What if they get enough financial aid and scholarships that they cover their undergraduate tuition? Can they use these credits or units toward graduate school?
So these units are for undergraduate tuition and school-wide required fees only. If your child does get a scholarship, that's wonderful. You can choose to use the scholarship money. You have to let the fund know, or you have to contact us and let us know that you have the scholarship, send us proof of the scholarship, and we will refund you accordingly. Your other option, if you have tuition units in the account that you don't need for your child because they have aid or they have scholarships, you have options. You can designate another beneficiary. So if you have a younger sibling or younger child, you can roll over those units to that younger child. Oh, wow. Or any child legally related to your primary beneficiary. The other option is you can take those units and roll them into another type of 529 plan. So remember we said that the Texas Tuition Promise Fund is only undergraduate tuition and school-wide required fees. You can take those remaining units and take their transfer value and put it into a general 529 account, and that can cover cost of graduate fees, room and board, books, other expenses that are not covered by this plan.
Great. So I think you said something important. So when you set up this fund, you actually designate a child that it's for. It's not like just a general savings account that I can draw from when I need to pay for one of my children.
So you designate what we call a beneficiary, someone that will benefit from the tuition units that you purchase. They need to be a Texas resident and have either a social security number or tax ID. If the child is not a Texas resident, the parent needs to be a Texas resident.
Okay. So if a student doesn't use his or her units, doesn't use all of them in total, you said that there is a refund process that parents can get a refund?
So they have three options, one of which is a refund. We went over the option where they can designate another beneficiary, anyone legally related to the child, roll it over to another 529 account, or the last option is to, just outright request a refund. In that case, they're going to see tax penalties on interest earned because they're not taxed on any interest earned while the money's in the account. But if they do request a refund, you do get taxed on that interest earned. And then you see that IRS penalty for taking out the money and not using it for which it was intended.
Okay. So what is a good timeline? When should parents really start thinking about setting these accounts up and, getting them rolling?
As soon as possible. I would say the younger the better. You give yourself more time to save, so you're not scrambling when the child reaches high school age. And also, the sooner you lock in that tuition rate is better, obviously. We do have an enrollment period deadline, so September 1st every year until February 28th, and that is extended until July 31st for children under the age of 1. Every summer after our deadline is over, the Texas public universities and colleges, they release their new tuition and school-wide required fees prices to us. So every September 1st, our sales prices change accordingly. So if you want to lock in those tuition prices for this year, you have until February 28th for children over the age of 1.
Wow, that sounds like an amazing deal, because I have 2 children in college right now, and both in Texas public schools, and I understand that, every year I see the tuition go up, and it would have been really helpful if I could have locked in a rate 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So does thinking about our parents and what might be stressing them, is there any flexibility in payment amounts, or do they gradually increase, or do you have the option of modifying it at any point if you come into some kind of financial trouble?
Yeah. So I think that's one of the really neat things about this plan is it is very flexible. We have 3 payment options. And it really depends on your budget and how much tuition you want to lock in. So if you make a decision to lock in a certain amount of tuition, remember anywhere from a fraction of a class if you do a pay-as-you-go plan, all the way up to 6 years of undergraduate tuition. Your options are you can install. So you lock in a certain amount of tuition at this year's sales period rates, and you do a monthly payment plan. We offer 5-year, 10-year, or extended payment plans. That means until the expected graduation date of the child. That option,
High school graduation?
yes, high school graduation
Okay.
date. So that option does have a finance component. It's about 8%. The other option that you have is to do pay-as-you-go, which is you just make payments whenever you have money. That's the most flexible option. So you make payments as long as it's a minimum of $15 every time you make a payment. And you can do those payments whenever you have some extra cash. And the last option that you have is just lump sum, outright just lock in a certain amount of tuition and pay a lump sum amount up front.
Okay. So, I'm thinking as a parent that might be watching at home. So if I know, okay, I can start paying, then I have to lay out for a few months. I can't do it because I know there's certain times of the year when my expenses go up, and then I come back in. Am I still locked in at the initial tuition rate, or does it lock in every time I start paying again?
If you do a pay-as-you-go plan, you're locking in tuition at the current sales period. So that's the only time that you might see your tuition that you lock in vary, because remember, every September 1st that price goes up. If you want to lock in at the current sales period price, you would do an installment or lump sum.
Okay. So there's no real minimum number of units to buy. You just have a $15 minimum as to what you can pay into the fund at a time.
Well, let me clarify that.
Okay.
So it's a $25 application fee for
Okay.
every child that you want to open an account, and the purchase of one type of tuition unit. So right now, our lowest price tuition unit is that type 3 unit at that 2-year school level.
Okay.
So for around $50, you can get the account open. Once you have the account open, you need to choose lump sum, installment plan, or pay as you go. There are minimums for the installment plan and lump sum. It's either 25 or 50 units, depending on which type. For pay as you go, there's no minimum, just as long as it's that $15 minimum.
Great. So I saw another thing on the website when I was looking called Match the Promise. Can you talk about what that is?
Match the Promise is our scholarship. It's an incentive for people that have a Texas Tuition Promise Fund account. So the requirements are that you have a Texas Tuition Promise Fund, and you have a household annual income of under $100,000 a year. The next requirement is your child needs to be in the grades 5th through 9th. And there's an academic component as well, so we need to see proof of their grades. If you meet all of those things, your child is eligible for a scholarship match from $100 to $500. So every $100 to $500 you put into the account, we will match. They also have to do a little essay that says what they want to be when they grow up, a career that interests them, and the top 6 scoring essays receive a one-time grant of $2,000. And they can get that every year, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, as long as they meet the requirements.
Wow. Okay, that's great. Can you tell us, where do we start the process? Where do we go online? Where do we get an application?
So the best place to start the process is to go to tuitionpromise.org. That's our website. We have a really neat tool called the Tuition Calculator. If you can find the link for that, you can pull up a tuition calculator. You enter in your child's birthday, what type of tuition units you want to purchase, and it will show you the breakdown of your payments and all your different options, and how much tuition and school-wide required fees that will get you at all Texas public universities and colleges. You can actually compare different universities. So once you do that, on our website there is a link that you can enroll. You can also write to us and we'll send you an enrollment packet, which is just a paper version of what you would find online, or you can call the phone number.
Just to be clear, because parents might have just heard you say this, when you go on and you're looking at comparing the different colleges' tuitions, you're not choosing a college at that point.
Right.
You're just looking at the general expense
Right.
so you figure out what kind of units that you would want to target.
Exactly. And so you have an idea of how far your units are going to get you at an expensive school versus maybe a 2-year college. Or if you have a particular school in mind, we have a lot of parents that say, my child's going to be an Aggie. So you can see what, how that would pay out at A&M college or UT college.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like to add that you don't think that we've talked about that might be of interest to our parents at home?
I think that's it. I think that I really encourage parents to go to the website and definitely check out the tuition calculator. And if they have any questions on the plan itself or just 529 in general, to reach out to us and we'll help them out with that. Okay.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot
Thank
for
you so
being
much.
here.
Yeah.
And now we're going to hear from a parent who is using this similar type of fund to pay for college right now and how that has been of benefit. Welcome back. I'm now joined by Paula Miller, who is a Waco High School parent who has had some dealings with this type of fund, who can give us some information from a parent perspective about how the ease of use and what she found as the benefits. So Paula, we just had Christine Wittich from the Texas State Comptroller's Office here talking about the new fund that is being used to help offset or save for college. Can you tell us a little bit about, I know you used the Texas Tomorrow Fund,
Right.
which she explained was the previous fund. Can you tell us how that has been for you as a parent? Did you find a lot of savings out of that? Did you find it convenient to use?
Absolutely. Our son is a junior at the University of Texas, and when he was born in 1995, we knew that the first thing we wanted to address with his birth was a college savings. And so we had heard about the Texas Tomorrow Fund and researched it. So we decided to make that move. At that time, the tuition rate for a 4-year state college was about $8,000 for 4 years.
Wow.
Yes. So we were able to go ahead and pay a lump sum of $8,300. I think we did it in 1996 for his Texas Tomorrow Fund. So when we did that, we chose the 4-year state school tuition. There were different options of private school, state school, different things. So we did choose the 4-year state school tuition. We paid $8,300 in a lump sum, and we knew that when we wrote that check, that when he graduated from high school, his 4-year tuition was locked in, and we were basically finished with his college savings.
Okay, and so has he, one of the things that we addressed with Christine is what happens if there's money left over, the students don't use it. But I think that you have a daughter who's a senior at Waco High right now.
I do.
And does she also have an account?
She does. She was born about 3.5 years later. When she was born, it had already jumped. It didn't double, but it came close. It was about $14,000 in 1999. So we were seeing that the tuition rates were just on a huge increase. So we did the same thing for Haley. We paid hers to give her the 4-year state tuition. There are some options that come along. Because Haley will graduate with quite a few dual credit courses and hours already on her plate, we will have some options of either, moving some of that money towards another degree, a master's degree, if she does go to law school, whatever it is. So we have some options. The benefit of the whole program is it's a win-win. You're never in a bad way with it, because with our son, when he went and registered at the University of Texas for the first time, he took his card to financial aid that has his account number, and every semester they just send in the money. I don't have to worry about when tuition is due. I don't have to worry if he paid it on time or anything. And then he has done a good job of getting a few scholarships along the way. So that has helped us to pay for other expenses like housing and books and those kind of things.
Okay. Yeah, I know as a parent with college-age children right now as well, I'm always dependent upon my daughter to tell me when the tuition payment is due, and that sounds like a good deal if it's just automatically taken care of.
It is.
And
it takes a lot of stress off of me.
I bet. And so when you did Haley's plan, did you also do a lump sum, or did you split it up into payments?
That's a good question. We were able to pay Alan's in one lump sum. When Haley came around, we weren't able to do that. What we did with Haley's plan is we did it over 3 years. We paid one lump. We divided it into thirds and paid one time a year for 3 years. It wasn't a monthly payment for 3 years.
Okay.
So hers was paid up in 3 years. It did accrue a little bit of interest to do it that way, but we didn't. That was our best option for us at the time.
Well, and I think that most of our parents, that would be the best option for most of them as well. She said that there are 3 different payment plans, that you can do a lump sum like you did with Alan, that you can do a payment plan like you did with Haley, and then that you can do pay as you go. But she said that the benefit of doing the ones that you did is that you lock in one rate.
Absolutely.
Whereas the pay as you go, you lock in whatever rate is active the year that you make that payment.
And that's exactly right. We have some relatives that did the same plan, and they did it a little differently. They made the payment every month up until, so I do know that ours came out ahead because of the way we were able to do it. The interesting thing about it, Scott, is at the time, everybody we knew tried to talk us out of it. Friends would tell us.
Why do you think that is?
I just think that it was almost too good to be true, and people were leery. And, I can remember one friend saying, oh, well, I would take that money and go invest it and let it turn into, and to watch that $8,000 turn into about $42,000 in 18 years, that was an eye-opener.
Yeah, especially given the mortgage industry collapse and the recession in 2009.
Absolutely. And at the time that we did it, my mother was living, and she even said to me, oh, Paula, I wouldn't use all your savings on that because, you'll have some inheritance by then. And I look back and think about that quite a bit because she did pass away 4 years ago, and it's kind of humorous to me that, yeah, it's a good thing I'm not having to use other money because it would just take everything we have. And it is just something that we did that was a really smart move. We knew when both of our kids were born, that was our priority, was their education. And it's something that, we're not feeling financially strapped now. We're going to have 2 kids in college next year, and that's really not something that's
weighing heavily upon you.
Right, right.
So what I hear you saying is that since you did it so early, at their birth, shortly after their birth, that you really saw a lot of benefit from that. And, what Ms. Wittich said was, if you start the payments earlier, then really you have a longer period over which you can pay. And so I really appreciate you, sharing that experience, because I know that we can hear things and it sounds good, but really hearing somebody who's gone through the process and worked with it, I think that that's especially valuable for all of our viewing community to know.
One thing I do want to add, it looks like we're going to have, my daughter's going to be at Texas A&M next year, but with both of our kids, they both considered private schools before they made their final decision, and we gave them that option. And so what I did is I looked into it to see what would happen with our Texas Tomorrow Fund, and what happens at that point is it turns into the value. Okay. So whatever the value would have been for the state school tuition at that time is the amount that would have been sent to a private school.
Got it.
So there is absolutely everything about it is just, a win-win situation. It's a lot off your plate when you're making all those decisions about, where your kids are going to college and where they're going to live and, how you're going to afford everything that needs to happen at that time. So it has been a great opportunity that we took advantage of, and I'm so glad that we did.
So, kind of recapping what we've heard about this fund that will allow you to save for your child's college education. It will lock in rates early so that we know every single year that tuition rates increase, and it will give you that benefit of paying a rate for today for what your students might encounter in 15 years. You can roll the money over into other educational expense accounts to pay for graduate school or law school if you don't use all of your credits. And if something detrimental comes along and you need to get a refund with some small tax penalty, you can get a refund out of your account and have access to that money. So really, looking forward for our kids, it seems like there's a lot of strengths to this. Remember, you have the 3 options. There's the Tier 3, which is to set money aside for a 2-year college. There's the Tier 2 for the public school, the average public school rate, and then that expensive school rate, like she mentioned about the University of Houston Nursing School. So thank you for being with us, and I would ask that you keep watching Waco ISD TV, where we have lots of good things happening here in Waco ISD. And I am Dr. Scott McClanahan and Paula Miller. Goodbye for now.